YTBC, what's the deal? So, this fight obviously never happened, but it's just interesting, man. And before I get to this one, I am going to do a video about Muhammad Ali and Teofilo Stevenson if that fight would have took place after the 1976 Olympic Games. But first, I wanted to touch on Mike Tyson versus Felix Savon. I'm sorry, man. While I'm doing this video, the Roy Jones versus Bernard Hopkins 2, their second fight is on. And, man, Bernard Hopkins, wow, man. This is off subject, but Bernard, once somebody did something to Bernard, hit him low or did something to him, he would milk the hell out of the clock, the judges, the referee, the crowd, everybody. And I'm a big Bernard Hopkins fan, man. But he is overselling this getting hit behind the head against Roy Jones in his second fight. They took like a 5-minute break. You would have thought Bernard Hopkins got hit with a damn 15-pound brick the way he's acting right now. He did this shit against Calzaghe and against Chad Dawson too. But back to the point. If this fight would have took place, now Don King offered Felix Savon, he offered him $25 million, man. That's, doing my research, that's the report that I heard, that he offered him $25 million to take a fight against Mike Tyson. We know how, I don't want to make this video too political, but, Fidel Castro is not going to let that go on. You know what I'm saying? We know that. We know how hard it is for Cuban fighters to even leave the country. So you talk about communism versus capitalism. I mean, Mike Tyson and Felix Savon would have been the epitome of that. But some of you got to remember now, we're not talking about the 88 Mike Tyson, the 87 Mike Tyson. We're talking about 1996 Mike Tyson. So this fight would have pretty much taken place somewhere sandwiched between Frank Bruno, Bruce Seldon. It was before the Holyfield. Because you got to remember that Holyfield fight was late that year, 96. So we're talking after the games, he fought Frank Bruno in March of 96. And then he fought Bruce Seldon in September of 96, the night Tupac was shot. So it would have been probably after the Bruno fight, going into the Seldon fight. Don King was doing his best. He's one of the best promoters ever, but he was doing his best at, promoting Mike. And this is the one loss Mike Tyson. The only loss he had was to Buster Douglas during this time period. So it wasn't the prime Mike Tyson, but it was still a formidable Mike Tyson. I mean, hell, Tyson unified the WBC and he won the WBC, let it go because he didn't want to fight Lennox, and then he won the WBA that year. You know what I'm saying? And that Lennox fight, I was reading Evander Holyfield autobiography, Becoming Holyfield, and Holyfield said in his autobiography that Mike Tyson in his camp, they were offered $40-something million, man. I think $42 million to fight Lennox Lewis, and they didn't fight him. That's according to Holyfield in his book. I mean, we're talking 96, man, and Tyson turned down $40-some-odd million to fight him. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people that didn't want to fight Lennox Lewis back then. Riddick Bowe was another one. But Felix Savon, man, now, I know, he's one of the best Olympians ever. He beat a lot of people in the amateurs. And I know we always say, well, that was the amateurs, and, you're right. But it's pretty much a fucking who's who of who he beat. He beat Sultan Bragimov. He beat Olander Solis, Michael Bent, Ray Mercer, Axel Schultz. I mean, Axel Schultz had a fight against Foreman. I thought he should have won. Ray Mercer, we know Ray Mercer. Michael Bent, for some of you don't remember, he played in a few movies, hood movies too. A Rockefeller movie back in the day. But he knocked out Tommy Morrison in the first round, and people forget that. Then he stopped Layman Brewster in the amateurs. He stopped David Tua, DeVaro Williamson, Shannon Briggs, Kirk Johnson. He did lose to Ruslan Chagayev. Then they gave the win back to Savon because Chagayev had fought professionally before that tournament that they fought in. Then 2 years later, Felix Savon beat Chagayev in a tournament. So Chagayev did have some success in that fight. I actually seen that fight. He actually hurt Savon, man. And if those ropes wasn't there, he would have landed on his ass. He would have landed flat on his back. Savon was close, probably would have been close to being stopped. I'm just being honest, just from looking at it. Now, you can argue that a lot of his stoppages, Savon stoppages, were, the ref jumped in and stopped it when it shouldn't have been stopped, like the Shannon Briggs fight. I watched that one. It was debatable. The Briggs was hurt. The Williamson KO was nasty because he was fighting off the back foot, and he got him. He also beat up he beat Nate Jones, a guy that's in Floyd Mayweather's camp. He beat him too. I mean, it's a who's who list of who he beat. And Savon being, 6'5" with an 82-inch reach, what did Mike have problem with? He had problems with, even in the fights he won, he still had problems with guys like Tony Tucker, Buster Douglas, Bone Crusher Smith, Lennox Lewis. What do these guys have in common? They're 6'4", 6'5". And looking at Savon, he looked closer to 6'6", man. But who do you guys think would have won this fight? The 96 version of Mike Tyson, the Tyson that fought, Frank Bruno the second time, and a guy that fought, who did he fight? Bruno and Bruce Seldon. So who do you guys think would have won this fight? Do you think Savon had a chance? Do you just think his amateur fights were just his amateur fights? Do you think he would have went in there without the headgear and got his ass knocked out? Or do you think he would have gave Tyson some problems? Me personally, especially guys that were of a high pedigree and that were tall guys, Tyson just had problems with it. Even at the tail end of his career, when he just, a shell of himself, a shell of himself when he fought Kevin McBride. What was McBride? Big, tall guy. Tyson just had problems with tall guys late in his career. Early in his career, he was knocking a lot of those guys out. When he had those ESPN fights, he was knocking a lot of those 6'5", 6'6" guys out. But when he got into fighting guys that were, of a higher class, at least world level competition, even if he won a decision, he just didn't look phenomenal in those fights. I know a win's a win, but he didn't look phenomenal in his fights. He always had trouble with guys that had good jabs, guys that had confidence going into the fight, and guys that can muscle him around a little bit. Although he beat Tucker, Tucker was wrapping him up pretty easily. So was Bone Crusher Smith. But man, to turn down $25 million. Damn, I cannot believe Felix Savon did that. That sounds just like an American, right? I know, but he turned it down, man. I believe it was was it Savon or was it Teofilo Stevenson that said, hey, what's $1 million, for the love of 8 million Cubans, so I forgot which one of those guys said it, but I guess money isn't everything to some guys, man. And like I said, I know Castro, he just wasn't letting that go on. He wanted to beat America. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't no coming over here making money, and he didn't want us profiting off his fighters, so. But who do you guys think would have won that fight, man? Felix Savon, we're talking 96. Felix Savon versus Mike Tyson in 1996. So Savon would have been a two-time Olympian. He's won a plethora of matches. I'm pretty sure I didn't look it up, but I've seen certain different sources that had him, 300 something wins, with 4 or 5 losses. Gaudy record, he had a gaudy amateur record, man. But who do you guys think would have won that fight? Felix Savon versus Iron Mike Tyson in 1996. I want to hear, what you guys think about this. How do you guys think it would have went? Me personally, like I said, Tyson had trouble with tall guys, but I think he would have knocked Savon out within about 4 or 5 rounds. Because just watching that Chigayev fight, I know it's just one, and Savon beat Chigayev cleanly after he had a problem with Chigayev the first time. I just think Tyson would have been able to evade the jab, even the 96 version. I think the first few rounds, once Savon, he fought with a lot of pride, man. He wasn't the type of guy that was going to run around. He fought, when you tagged him, he'll tag you right back. And I think once his pride would have got involved, I think just standing there and just trying to slug with Iron Mike, I just think Tyson would have caught him. It would have probably been interesting the first couple of rounds, but I think the 96 version of Tyson was good enough to still beat Felix Savon. YTBC, I'm out.